All right, everyone. In this video, what I want to do is basically just break down this patch that I used to record my most recent single. So here we go. All right, so the first voice, kind of the starting point of the entire patch, is this voice using the Window VCO by Surge. When I started this patch, generally the first module that I put in is the clock module, but with this one I wanted to kind of do things a little different. So I actually started with these wavetable LFOs, not synced to any clock, basically. So here is what we have going on with Window. So these three LFOs are controlling, I think, the morph, formant, and then a little bit of detune going in there. Additionally, then we have two more LFOs. One is just frequency modulating the other, and then that one is controlling this VCA, which is running into a low pass filter into the board. So okay, and then that is connected to the second voice, which is this delay voice. So basically what I'm doing, so the first voice, Window, is just the left output, and for the delay voice I'm taking the right output, which is running into a high pass filter. I did a lot of split filtering of voices on this album. But there's a few more things that are going on with this. So it's running into the high pass filter, which is then running into Chronoblob. But I have this random gates module by Hetrick. Essentially, so this is being clocked by another LFO. Right now, it's pretty slow, pretty low frequency. So it's not clocking very fast, which means we're not getting gates very often. When these gates do come out, they are going to trigger the sample and holds, which are being fed from a noise module, and then that's going to affect the independent left and right delay times. When that happens, I am in resampling mode. It's basically going to glitch. So now the frequency of this LFO is being controlled by my keyboard, essentially. So as I increase this, we're going to get those glitches more often. Okay. Turn that back down. All right, now we kind of get into the percussive voices. So I did eventually end up adding a clock to this patch, just for percussion, really. And I'm kind of doing something I've never done before in a patch in this case, which is I'm actually using the clock itself as a voice. So, so that voice starts here. There's a few things going on. So something to know with the clock is because it is just this on-off square wave. Essentially you get double the clicks for whatever rate your clock is at. So currently this is taking just a quarter note pulse, but it would be coming out as eighth notes essentially. And then I have this connected to a switch, which is also then connected to this sample and hold. So basically what happens is I can send a gate from my keyboard. It's going into the sample and hold, which is being triggered by the 16th note. So these changes are going to happen in time. And then that's going to switch from the quarter note pulse to the eighth note pulse. So basically taking us from eighth notes to 16th notes. Okay. All right, that pairs then with the kick. kick is really straightforward in this patch. Just the quarter note, basically coming into kick hall. But combined with the clock, it kind of gives the kick a little more attack. Okay, next percussive voice is going to be the spank envelope, which is right here. Okay, so this one, let's see, it's always fun to remember how you did something like 7 months ago. So, okay, so we're getting the same, trigger signal that's going to the clock. This time though, because it's not going to the clock, it's going to match the input. So it's going to match the quarter note, it's going to match the eighth note. That envelope then is opening up this VCA, which is being fed by the violet noise from this noise module, and that's going to the board. Now, same thing, I can control the rate of this with my keyboard. The next thing that's going on then is that same spank envelope is also going, or the same output is going into a high pass filter, which is going into another chronoblob. This one is being synced. That goes to a VCA, which goes to the board. The way that this VCA is controlled, there's a few ways that I did this in this patch, and there's probably some better ways to do this, but let's kind of talk about this a little bit. So basically, okay, so we're going into this one. So when I send a gate, obviously it's going to open that VCA up. The slew limiter is essentially rounding off the square gate. So instead of this being maybe a click or a pop, when it's an on-off, it kind of smooths that out. But this way, I can just press the key, and when I release, it's going to close that voice off. So it gives me another playable rhythmic voice, which is always fun. Okay, last main percussion voice is the snare drum. So we kind of have a little bit of a waste of an 8-sec sequencer. Just using this to length set to 2, just to get basically a trigger every other clock. So, okay, that trigger runs into the snare drum, which is running into this VCA and running out to the board. This is also, again, being controlled by the keyboard, but the setup here is a little bit different. So I have this sequencer, again, just 2 steps, so 0 volts and 10 volts. So, and then I'm using a slip detector. Again, there's probably a better way to do this. So, so what happens is when I press this key, it detects a rising voltage, which is going to set out a gate from the slope detector, or trigger, I guess, which is going to move the sequencer. Again, using the slew limiter just to smooth out that on-off signal. Okay. The advantage of doing it this way is that I don't have to press that key down. So, okay. So again, another playable voice. There's one other thing that's going on with the snare drum, which has to do with this AD envelope. This is actually going to tie into the croon voice, which we'll get to shortly. But I want to go through kind of the last percussive voice, which is this tom voice. It also happens to be the most complicated. So, okay, so we are getting the 16th note division fed into this chance module. Now what's happening, I'm controlling this with my keyboard. So basically, if I start to lower this down, we're going to start getting more triggers coming through. So let's kind of talk about this a little bit more. So this is going, these triggers are going into this switch. So essentially every other trigger is either going to this top of the Tommy module or the bottom of the Tommy module. So the bottom one is going to stay on the same drum the whole time. The top one is going to randomly select from this super sample and hold. So you get kind of this effect of, it's like a drum solo where you're going back and forth. You're always hitting one drum and then hitting another, hitting the same drum, hitting another, okay? Which to me sounded a little more human and organic. So, okay, that is also being panned, which, where is that coming from? It's coming from this attenuverter, which is coming from this slew limiter, which is coming from another sample on hold, which is being triggered by the 16th node. So, so the hits are, every hit is coming at a slightly different location, okay? If you come back to this, both Tommies are being fed into this VCA mix, which is then running into Opabinia, which goes into another VCA, kind of similar setup, so I can turn this on and off from the keyboard, and then that runs into the board. So, okay, one more voice, and then we'll get to hear a little bit of everything together. So that is the croon voice. All right. Okay, so a few things going on with this one. So the pitch content is coming from the sequencer, running into the slew limiter, which is running into the croon, okay? Now, this runs in to this comb filter, which is being, it's got a frequency modulation, which is coming from the noise module. And then I think that this one, this LFO is affecting the resonance. This goes into another low-pass filter, which goes in these VCAs, which makes its way into the board. But everything that's going on over here is so that I can trigger the note changes, essentially. But when I have that note change, I'm also getting this sweep of the frequency of the low-pass filter, okay? So, all right, so that is every voice one at a time. Let's hear a little bit of how everything sounds together, and then for the full, produced recording of this, check out the link in the description for the music video as well. So, all right, thanks, enjoy.